So my name is Joel, and I've been working here at the embassy for the last few months, studying up on cryptocurrencies, and I'm excited to present a little bit more into the economics of Safecoin and examine some of the future models that could be built on top of that going forward. So, as founder David Irvine alluded to in the clip we just heard, the fundamental problem we're dealing with here is centralized data structures. And this presents three problems for us. One is control points, or surveillance. Two is failure points, or security. And three is traffic points and speed. So inherently, the current structure of the internet requires us to sacrifice surveillance, security, and speed to some degree. And that is naturally a problem. And the reason it's a problem is because data is the most valuable commodity in the world. It's so fundamental to the way that we communicate, and it's something that even beyond it being a commodity, just to us, it's for human-to-human interaction across the internet, it's something that is essentially priceless. Recently, even, the World Economic Forum classified data as an asset. So in either way that we look at it, it's in our best interest to protect it. The current revenue model of the internet, however, is based on selling data and profits flowing to centralized entities. So future models need to put users at the heart of the equation and incentivize more collective network behaviors. So the solution as proposed by Maidsafe is a secure, decentralized data storage network. And the architecture is designed to constantly circulate small bits of encrypted data throughout a decentralized network of distributed computers. To make this a success and to reach a state where the network becomes fundamentally stable, secure, and lightning quick, you need to be able to scale it to millions of users. And so to accomplish that, you need an incentive. And volunteer incentives are not enough to facilitate continued network growth. I mean, I think it's at the beginning, lots of people would say, oh, this is great, I want to join, what can I do to help? And that may get it to a certain level, but not to the level that David Irvine and the team at Maidsafe and everyone who's participating in it wants to get it to. And that's why economic incentives are necessary. And that's the genesis of Safecoin, which I'm about to get into. The creation of a token or a cryptocurrency to incentivize network behaviors and facilitate continuous network growth. So Safecoin is a token that represents data resources. So fundamentally, there's going to be 4.3 billion coins produced during the life of the network. But obviously those won't all be released at once. And the Safecoin can only exist on Safe network, and its distribution is handled entirely on a per-user basis through mechanisms that I'll talk about further into the presentation. It utilizes a proof of resource mechanism. So the network is continually validating which nodes are providing it resources in a mathematically viable way. So the nodes will be all the computers and devices that are connected to it in this kind of ever-expanding network. And the people that actually, in Bitcoin, it's mining. In Safecoin, it's farming. And so farmers will be paid by the network for providing computer resources to the network. So that's the economic incentive that we talk about. But it's all fundamentally backed by data. And I think that's one of the things when we start to look at the whole economic model that makes Safecoin unique. And because we have such a big incentive to protect that data in this world, that's what makes it a really, a very, economic model, so to speak. And while incentivizing this network behavior is the primary role of Safecoin, there's also kind of emerging roles that will become inherent to Safecoin over time, such as a store of value or a payment mechanism as the ecosystem evolves. And that's why it can truly become a real currency in the sense of how we normally think about currencies. So there's a lot of similarities between Safecoin and Bitcoin, and that both are decentralized, autonomous currencies secured by math. I think those are the main three off the bat. But there's some differences between the way that they're structured and designed. How many people here know what the Bitcoin blockchain is? Okay, so most people. So that is a public ledger to record transactions and prevent the double spend problem. That's the backbone of Bitcoin. So Safecoin has a different mechanism, which is called group consensus, which I'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide. But while Bitcoin is a public ledger, Safecoin is anonymous, in that the transactions are all processed in groups rather than across the entire network. And the big characteristic as a result of that is that Safecoin's confirmation time is basically instantaneous. And that's part of the vision, that this will become this kind of digital cash, essentially, where it can all move instantaneously. So obviously that's different to Bitcoin in terms of confirmation time, the ledger system, and the blockchain consensus, but both are designed fundamentally to function as cryptocurrencies. So group consensus, without going into too many details about it, basically on the Safe network as a whole, you'll have these closed groups, and each group will contain 32 members. And consensus must be reached by 28 of those members for a certain action to be taken place. Now, the groupings are determined completely mathematically. It's not by geography or by friends or whatever. So when a transaction takes place within Safe Network, it's done by cryptographic signatures to authorize the transaction. And the process itself is governed by what's called a transaction manager. So on the left here, this would be the user's computer, and they log in through the Safe client. And this is the vault. And the vault is where on every individual machine is where the data is stored. Now within the vault, you have what's called these personas. And the persona essentially just plays a role for Safe Network. In this case, the role that we're looking at, or the persona, is the transaction manager, who ensures that this transaction goes through properly. And so in this case, we have Alice here on the left and Bob on the right. And so the transaction manager will check that Alice is the current owner of the key by retrieving her public key and confirming it has been signed by the correct and corresponding private key. So the transaction manager is governing this cryptographic signature process. And the transaction manager will only accept a signed transaction from the current owner. So I think at a very kind of granular level, that's fundamentally how it works. Obviously, again, the big difference when compared to Bitcoin is the blockchain. And so not everyone in the network will see this transaction. The transaction manager is concerned with the current owner and the preceding owner only. And this makes it an anonymous transaction. So in terms of the breakdown of where the Safe coins will be distributed. So core developers are those who are developing the actual core code of the network. App builder would be someone who would be building a third-party app of any type, really, in the network. I mean, I think Francis had a few examples of Dropbox-style things, messaging, video chat, whatever. But the majority will be distributed by farmers, and there's a number of reasons why that is, but that's to kind of distribute this wealth in terms of we think about the whole kind of safe economy. And so, yeah, basically core developers will get 5%, app builders 10%, and farmers 70%, but that's not released all at the beginning. It's released over time because the actual release of safe coins is directly correlated to the demand for data on the network. So it's not like a bunch are released arbitrarily at the beginning. It's all based on data demand. And that's represented here. So this is how farming fundamentally works. This is what's called a sigmoid curve. And the idea is that vaults will earn slowly over time, and then the rate increases as the farmer stores up to the network average. So here we see the network average. So at the beginning, it's slow, and then once you get to this network average point, basically your reward increases exponentially. And then once you get to that point there, 20% above average, it flattens out. And that's by design. So vaults are ranked on their usefulness from 0 to 1, and that determines their earning power. And the safe coin farming rate is ultimately the result of the network rate, which is a balance of supply and demand, like I said, for data on the network, multiplied by the vault rank. So a vault will be ranked from 0 to 1, and that's correlated to the actual network demand, and that will determine the network reward ratio. So the reason that this is represented in this way, and this is a sigmoid curve, and the incentives are designed this way, is to prevent centralization of mining and to ensure that SafeCoin are distributed as much as possible throughout the network. Because the vision is that everyone who is part of SAFE, whether they're small participants or big participants, will be able to participate in the farming upside. So there won't be like specialized hardware devices and huge, farming data centers. It's going to be more, I guess, democratic, for lack of a better term, and it will be better in the safe network. If you're a farmer, it will be better to have multiple devices as opposed to like one big specialized device. So now this one, we're starting to look at the actual economics and the pricing of SafeCoin. And you can see here market initial value. So 10% of SafeCoin was sold in a crowd sale last year. So there's an active market already established for, it's called Maidsafe coin right now because it trades over over third-party exchanges. But once the Safe network launches, then this will trade within Safe network. And so the price is a result of supply and demand set by the market purely. And the number of safe coins in use will increase based on the network use, as I've said. And because almost all safe coin holders will be farmers, this will create this kind of liquidity and distribution of wealth within the network. So this part where we see the price increasing over time is based on the idea that as the number of apps grow, SafeCoin apps, and the utility of the coin increases, the supply of SafeCoin will also increase in this sense, and we would expect the price of the SafeCoin to increase. At the same time, the cost of resources, that curve is representing the cost to actually store data on the network. And so that, even coming out of the gate, that is anticipated to be less than the cost that you would pay on something like cloud computing. But because we expect this kind of exponential growth of the network, we expect that curve to come down to, not zero, but very low over time as well. So I think that the way that this could unfold as this ecosystem grows is initially, like I said previously, it's it's based on data. It's based on the demand for the data within the network. That will determine the value of the safe coin. But as more apps come on there and people use it, and its utility ultimately increases, that will also release more safe coins. So there'll be more farmers farming, and those farmers will have a continuously greater incentive over time to continue farming. And it's just kind of, the idea is that it will continue to build and build and build. And as a consequence, the price would also go up. So there'll be hopefully many reasons to spend SafeCoin through third-party apps on the network, but also to hold SafeCoin on the network as well. And I think that's the economic model that works best to achieve the vision that's been laid out, which is to create this very secure, stable, and safe network where everyone feels that they ultimately, at the end of the day, their data is protected and they're incentivized to grow their businesses or their activities within that network. So just in summary, safe coin will be, and safe network will be surveillance free. The data will be fundamentally secured, and the speed of transactions will be instantaneous. And that, in and of itself, again, if successful, would enable just a mind-blowing array of possibilities when we think of where this could be applied or what kind of new models could emerge out of this ecosystem. So I think kind of it's like looking at it, the future potential, it's kind of we can kind of blue sky and see some pretty incredible things that could result if this was all successful.